So how's the family doing?
Yeah, all good. Thank you very much. Yeah, all good. Getting started. Well, not back to normal. Everything is still pretty on lockdown, pretty much over here. But it's all happening at some point, hopefully.
Well, again, thanks so much for taking the time out to meet with us, chat with us a little bit today. Now, are you in the UK right now?
Yes. No. It's great to see you. I'm in the UK. Yes, I just live outside London.
Okay, and are you originally from the UK or?
No, so I'm from Germany. I'm from Munich originally. Was born in Munich, lived in Munich for until I was 19. So I started working in the industry in Germany back in Munich. Started really early and moved to Denmark. Moved to Denmark to go to the film school when I was 20, and after a year or so back in Germany, I decided to move to the UK. So I've been living in the UK since 2001, really 2002.
So growing up, was your family like a big movie family? Did you have like a big movie night, or did you go see movies a lot?
I loved movies. I always loved movies. I did watch a lot of films with my parents, but my parents weren't that much into movies. We did, have the occasional sort of movie family night, but it wasn't a huge thing. I fell in love with movies very early on through my best friend Nick, who he was a big movie fan from very early on. He wanted to become a director from very early on. So he's the one who, from a very young age, got me into films, really.
Okay. So do you remember what that first movie was that you saw that made you go, wow, that's what I want to do. I want to do that.
No, I don't, to be honest. I'm just trying to frame up here. But I have no idea. But I was born in '78, so when I was growing up, Indiana Jones was a big one. All those kind of, those classic movies. So there's a lot of films that I watched when I was a kid. A lot of films that I fell in love with, and but I never had one particular film that, I went like, wow, this is what I want to do.
So basically just the whole scheme of film itself, you fell in love with.
Well, I think it was I just had a fascination. I mean, I loved Western. I really love Westerns. I still do. But I had a particular love for Westerns when I was a kid, and I kind of started doing this very early on for many different sort of for many different reasons, and doing it for fun, doing it for and suddenly you sort of fall into it, and then suddenly you've been doing it for a few years, then you've been doing it for 10 years, and then you realize, well, I can't do anything else. This is what I've been doing all my life. So
that's what Yeah. So was it always your goal?
And luckily, I enjoy it. I love it. I enjoy it. I love it. So I'm very lucky in that respect. But
yeah. Was it always your goal to be a cinematographer? Went to film school, or did you just kind of fall into it?
Well, I remember I went on to my first film set when I was about 14. I was taken there by Nick's stepdad, who was in film, and I loved films, but I didn't have a clue how films were made. I didn't have a clue what the different departments were, any of that stuff. And then, but Nick and I had been doing stuff, so we'd been shooting and doing little short films and things like that. And but obviously you don't know how it really works. And so I got taken to the set, and I saw it wasn't actually the DP, it was the camera operator sitting on a dolly, I think it was, and I just thought, that looks great. This guy sitting there on his dolly, operating camera. So that was very naively sort of my first experience in that, and I said that's what I want to do, without realizing what the camera operator does, or without realizing how much it entails to be a DP. but I just knew that's what I want to do. I want to operate a camera, and very quickly I realized I love lighting and creating a mood with lighting and framing. So that was it. I never really thought about it after that.
So, you know, we know that the director always has a final say. He has a final word of what he wants. But I've always been curious, how much input does a director of photography actually give to the director, and does he ever have a final say on a certain shot?
Well, certainly. I mean, hopefully, you know, with everything, you know, it's about collaboration, which is the most important and personally for me the most enjoyable thing when it comes to working on a project. And you know, there's some directors who are very clear about what they want. They're very sure of what they want or what they need. There's other directors who aren't so sure, who leave the decisions more up to the DP. But ultimately, the most enjoyable for me, and I'm sure for most people, is a collaborative relationship with the director. So, you know, most of the directors I've worked with feel the same, and I think that from collaboration, that, you know, you get the most fruitful and the best outcomes. So, you know, I'm a very visual person. I have many ideas on how something could be done. Directors do too, and so you come together, you talk about it, and you figure out the best. Hopefully, you come up with the best possible solution and possible way. So sometimes that's the director's idea, sometimes my idea. We ultimately decide on that, you know, that would be the right thing to do, and most of the time it's a combination of both.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite aspects of filmmaking is the collaboration between the crew and the producer, the DP, and so on. It's just, it feels like you're actually making something together. And
yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important for, it counts for everyone, you know, no matter who you are. I mean, I always say to all of my guys, whoever's in my team and all the other departments, if anyone has any ideas of anything, don't be shy to say, you know, because I think the whole process is a team effort, and none of it would work if one cog doesn't work, you know, and it doesn't matter where you are, what you do. So I think that's, and I've always loved that, you know, I've always loved that.
Yeah. So we know that you've done a lot of TV work. You worked on Sherlock along with some others, but of course the biggest one you've worked on is Game of Thrones. One question I have is, as far as, you know, Game of Thrones is such a huge production, and they shoot in different countries, I believe, sometimes even at the same time, depending on the scene. Logistically, how do you handle that as the DP for an episode like that?
Yes, so we have two crews. We have two full crews which are shooting simultaneously. We got the Wolf unit and the Dragon unit. Actually, in 1 year, which I think was it must have been season 5 or 6, we had a third unit called the White Walker unit. But normally we have two full units, and they both start in Northern Ireland in Belfast, where we had our main base, and then both shoot there. So Wolf unit on the Monday would shoot on the stages with director team 1 and director cinematographer 1, and the Wolf unit would shoot on location on the Monday with director team B, and that would continue like this for a while. And then at some point, the Wolf unit would go to Spain or Croatia or wherever to stay there for a few weeks, and then each director and DP and first would come out there to film the scenes which were set in those places. You know, for us, all the hard work is done by the scheduling and which is done by one guy, Chris Newman. He's one of our producers. He works the schedule and he works out how we can. And so that's one of the great things about Game of Thrones, is that I would always, each DP, each director will always direct shoot the things which are in their episodes. So you never really, apart from some very rare occasions, have anything where you're not shooting it. So that fear isn't there.
Okay.
At all. But on the other hand, also on that show, it wouldn't be there because it's a bunch of such great people. I mean, when I first started on Thrones in season 4, I couldn't believe that I was suddenly in a room shooting a show with people like Jonathan Freeman, who's like, he was one of my favorite DPs before I even met him and before I started the show, and then meeting him and getting to know him and becoming friends. He's also a super nice guy. So on that show, you don't have to worry. And then there's lots of systems in place where we keep up with each other, what each other is doing, and how we're shooting things. There's a system that's been set up with stills, so I can always look into all of the stills, which have been taken from each scene that all of us have been shooting. So if I have a follow-up scene from episode 3, an episode that Jonathan has shot, and I've got a scene in episode 4 that kind of follows on from that storyline, I can just look up the stuff that he's done very easily. But also, they're all super nice guys, so we just talk all the time. I would just call him up and say, hey, how about this, or vice versa. So there's no such things like, oh, I'm not quite sure how to do this. You always know exactly what's happening.
With Battle of the Bastards, which is personally one of our favorite episodes, there's just so much goodness jam-packed in that episode, and the whole battle sequence is just extraordinary and so cinematically shot. The part that always gets me is when John is being trampled over by all these different people, and he's being covered with all these people, feeling like he's suffocating, and you as an audience member feel that way too. I felt like I can't breathe, as John couldn't breathe in that scene. And then when he finally gets free, you feel like a viewer, like, oh, I can breathe now. Obviously editing is involved with that, but also how do you shoot that in a way that conveys to the audience, I want the audience or the viewer to feel what this character is feeling in that way?
Yeah, I mean, certainly that's something that has driven Miguel's and my decisions, what we're doing visually in all the episodes that we've done, is something we always try and want to get sort of the audience involved into the character as much as possible. Character is something that we talk about the most, I think. And when we both first read Battle of the Bastards, it was a big, long fighting scene, and we both said that, we don't want to watch just a fight for like half an hour, because that you lose interest in a fight after a few minutes. So what can we make it about? And so we said we make it about John and his journey, and we followed John through this battle, and that kind of drove our decisions of how to shoot it, and that drove the decisions of the long take in the beginning when he first gets into the battle, and everything from there on. And yeah, it's a funny moment there, because we didn't really have time to shoot that much. That whole scene was something that got developed throughout prep, and it became a much bigger moment than what it actually was initially in the script. And we were shooting that because we had so much to shoot each day. We were literally crammed we were shooting 10 hours straight every day, and struggling to get all the stuff that we knew we needed to get to make the scene work. So it was a really full-on shoot. And I think we were setting up for some other shots, and the weather was right, and we had the people there. I just said to Mick, let's get Kit, let's get some stunties. We lie down there in the mud over there, and just get him down there and just have the stunts just trample on us and go. It was pretty mad, and it was shot really quick. You know, it was one of those moments that just kind of happened, and it became a huge thing in the final show, which is great, obviously.
Yeah, yeah, and especially the scene where John is standing there in the middle of all this chaos happening behind him when he whips out his sword, people falling, horses trying to trample people down behind him. Was that shot real for real? Was there some green screen involved in that shot?
Yeah, no green screen. I mean, it was very well planned. This shot, obviously, it's we cut it in 3 takes. So we didn't want to we didn't necessarily want to do a long shot just for the showing off a long shot. It was more about, I always think that when you don't cut away from the character, when you can't feel any cuts, it makes it more intense. And so for that moment when he lands in that battle, we just wanted it to be intensity from the moment go. And it was to show that really John is lucky. You know, John's a good fighter, but he's not a superhero. It was really like, you're just lucky. If you're in there and you survive, you're lucky. It's not down to your skills. It's just down to pure luck. And so it was actually 3 different takes, which was driven by many different things, but obviously the first and most important one is safety. And we had Kit in there, Sean, our camera operator. You know, we had real horses with stunties doing real things at speed. So plus extras and all of that. So we just couldn't, there was no space and no way that we could sustain this action and that over a minute or something, whatever this show is. So we broke it up into like whatever, 3 25-seconders or 30 seconds. And that was really mainly for safety, but there was no green screen. You know, there was a couple of CGI horses were added later because they couldn't physically be so close to the actors. But everything else you see is real. You know, all the guys coming off the horses, all the fighting, everything is for real. So
now in the next episode I want to talk about was A Long Night, and I'm sure you're very aware of the viewer outcry of that episode after it aired over how dark that episode was. I mean, obviously the scene is at night, and you wanted to convey how dark it is at night, but was that a creative choice to have it so dark?
It was a creative choice, but it was also something that was driven by many other factors. I didn't want to do a Lord of the Rings battle. Okay, I love Lord of the Rings. I'm a big fan. Andrew Leslie is a great DP, God bless him. But that's not the look that we wanted to do, and we didn't want to copy that. We wanted to do our own thing. And one of the things that we always talked about from the very beginning was darkness, which was driven from a very creative point, but it was also driven or then enhanced by many other factors, like, for example, the CGI guys suddenly saying to us, okay, guys, listen, we don't have this much money and we don't have this much time to, when you look towards the army of the White Walkers, to see like, I don't know, 500,000 whites. We don't have the money to see that. Okay, because that's a big visual effects job. They've got a whole season to think of. They have the money for a whole season. They've got 6 episodes that all require a lot of work, and they only have, I don't know, 7 months to do all the work. So they came to me and said, look, we need to also do something that we don't see all this visual effects stuff all the time. We need to shoot this, you know. And so there was a lot of other factors that came into that. But no, the main factor was absolutely, it was a creative choice. That we wanted it to be dark, and I love the shot when they come out of nowhere, out of darkness, and you don't see anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, you know, I think,
well, you don't know,
imagination is half of what you're doing, you know.
Yeah, as a viewer, you don't know how many walkers are actually going towards them to attack when it's dark like that. And as a filmmaker, you know, myself having that filmmaker set, I agree with you. Having it dark, you don't know what's coming out from the shadows. You don't know what's coming out from the darkness. And then when you see the sea of White Walkers against a back I mean, against the darkness, it makes it look so much more impactful and like it's a sea of White Walkers.
Some people didn't like it. Some people didn't watch it the right way. So,
Well, people are going to complain about anything, you
oh
know.
no, of course, absolutely. With this,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. So now, the and one episode that we were also just speechless about was the bells. When Arya is running through the kingdom while Daenerys is burning it down, and things are just again chaotic, and parts of the kingdom is falling down behind her.
It was difficult because we had just come off 70 nights or 55 nights. So we just finished 55 nights of night shoots for episode 3. And then we literally started 2 days later, we started episode 5. And then we shot for another 50 days for episode 5. So,
Wow.
that made it quite difficult. Because that was just physically, that was a tough undertaking. But no, I mean, we had a great set built by Deborah, our production designer, who's amazing. we built a massive set on the backlot, and it was like being, we could do anything there. We built it. The guys built it very cleverly, so I could have fires wherever I wanted to have real fires, because I like to do it with real fire. So it was like an amazing playing field, really, to sort of come up with the journey that Aya went through, for example, running through the streets. So it was, I mean, it was, no, it wasn't tough.
So, Alice, we're going to stay away from Game of Thrones. Do you like working with storyboards or doing rehearsal much when you shoot either a film or a TV series?
It depends on what you do. I think something like a big battle sequence, you need to have a storyboard or a previs, just so that you have something physical to explain to, whether it's your gaffer or all the other departments which are involved, or whether you're showing it to the actors or the crowd. For example, on Thrones, we had the previs and we showed it to the actors so that they kind of had a sense of what this whole, because it's a big fucking thing, what this whole thing is about, so they see the bigger picture before we actually start. So that's very helpful. I think it's helpful for me because I can do some planning, but I don't like to listen to it, or I don't like to stick to it too much. I like to be open for, I always think that you can plan as much as you want. As soon as you get to set and you have a stressed set and you have actors there, everything is free fall, because everything changes. The vibe changes, the mood changes, the actors might change anything, and you can't plan for those sort of things. And I've made the mistake before that I was too stuck to a storyboard, thinking I'm just going to shoot this way, this is all I need lighting wise, and then you're there and suddenly you realize, actually, what, this is so much better if I look this way. And then you're stuck because you can't do it that quickly. And so I always like to be very open and very flexible to be able to do change within an instant on set, because you see something that's much better. So yes, storyboards are really useful, or previs is really useful and great, I think, as long as you use it the right way.
A lot of people have started talking about stagecrafting, mainly because of The Mandalorian. They had a huge making of talking about how they shot the show with stagecrafting and 3D. And a lot of people have started saying that that's the future of filmmaking, especially with COVID-19, that this is the future of filmmaking. And I just wanted to know what your thoughts on that is.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that would be the future of filmmaking. I've been thinking of it for years and years and years. I've always been telling people this job isn't going to last forever, and this industry is going to change. And people have always told me that I'm being negative and that it's not going to go that quick. And now this COVID thing has only just sped it all up, I think. And so yeah, I think it's coming a lot quicker than anybody would have thought. what can you do? It's just the way the world changes, and it's the way the industry changes, and the way the technology changes what we do. And I think you just have to embrace it. I think The Mandalorian is amazing. I think it's incredible how it looks and what they've done. On season 8 of Thrones, we actually used, for example, we used VR for set building and checking our locations and seeing, using it for actual location scouting almost, in a virtual world, so that we knew exactly what we would build, what we would have to build, how high it would have to be. I didn't really embrace it much back then because I always like to be on set with a finder and then sort of make it up. But Jonathan Freeman, who's very clever, for example, and he really got into that, and he spent hours with the VR guys sort of planning each shot. Which was pretty incredible to see, So, but yeah, that's certainly the future, and it's certainly coming much quicker than anyone would have thought.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that DPs aren't going to be out of work. I mean, they're still going to be needed, as you said, to somebody needs to be there to shoot it still, even though there might be, especially in these huge superhero movies, a digital camera. Someone still needs to be there to film that, to direct those scenes.
Oh no, sure. I mean, I think the old classic filmmaking will always be there, and it's not really about the DPs. It's about everyone. There's so many departments, so many people who work in industry that, so it's going to be a big change for everyone, I think.
Yeah. I see. Is that a guitar in the background there, leaning against the couch?
There is. Yeah.
Are you a musician too?
There is. A very bad one.
Very badly.
Very bad, but I enjoy it. That's what counts.
So you won't be able to play the Game of Thrones theme for us today?
I won't.
If you don't mind,
it's not something that I would want to learn as well.
if you don't mind, I want to talk a little bit about Justice League. We all know what happened with Justice League. We don't need to go over it.
Out.
Yeah, we don't need to go over it again. But that's what I want to talk about is finally Zack Snyder's able to complete his vision of Justice League on HBO Max. How exciting is that for you?
Oh, it's great. I mean, first of all, I love Zack. It was such an incredible. I still can't believe that. He chose me to shoot that film. I've always been a fan of Zack's work. I've always been a fan of Larry Fong, his DP. And so when I had the phone call to meet Zack, I was like, "Come on, guys, you got to be kidding me!" But obviously, I went to see him. And the first thing I said to him when I came in the office, I said, "Zack, it's amazing to be here, but I really don't know why I'm here." And we had a great chat, and then 2 weeks later, they offered me the job, and I seriously could not believe it. And I was driving to work every day thinking this must be a job. And it's because, it was obviously a big movie, but also Zack is just such a nice guy. Zack is an amazing, creative guy who's really in love with the DC universe, who knows a lot about all of those characters. And, so, the film was what it was, and Joss Whedon came in to finish it, and I think he did a great job. It's not an easy thing to come in and finish someone else's movie like that, and then you've got all the things going on that come in from above, from studios and whatever. I mean, there's so much going on. There's a lot of pressure. So, but anyway, whatever happened. The sad thing was that Zack spent a long time developing this film and working on this film and then making this film, and obviously because of his personal tragedy, had to step away. And so I'm just very happy for him, because it means that he can actually hopefully show the film that he always intended to have, and that's why I'm happy. I'm happy for him.
Yeah. I mean, I've always considered Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, and then his Justice League as a trilogy. And to a lot of people, the trilogy wasn't finished in the way that in the same vein as Man of Steel or Batman versus Superman. Again, it's not just Whedon's fault at all. I mean, he came in there, he did his job, he did what he was supposed to do, and I think he did a good job with the circumstances he had to work with. Now, did you stay on as DP when Joss came in, or?
I didn't know. I finished with Zach. We shot for a long time, and we finished the movie. We did our last 5-6 weeks in LA. We finished shooting in LA, and I finished with him, and that was it. And I didn't come back. By the time they decided to do reshoots and everything went the way it went, I was already shooting a different film, so I couldn't have done that anyway.
Now, I have a buddy, Tyler, who works in post-production, and he wanted me to I told him I was doing an interview with you, and he wanted me to ask you a question. If you prefer to stick around with post-production crew after shooting is wrapped, and if so, what are the advantages to that?
Well, I mean, I always try and have a good relation. I always try and have as much input and relationship with all departments as possible. Obviously, post is one of the major ones. Unfortunately, with the post-production, the tricky thing is a lot of the times that it goes on for so long that at some point I go into another job. But what I've become to do very, like always, and I've done this kind of always, is just constantly be in touch with those departments. So I would always speak to visual effects, basically. When they were finishing Game of Thrones over those months, we would at least email once a week, and we would talk about what they're doing right now. They would send me some images of what they're working on right now, and I could say, look, this was really, I was hoping it could be a bit more like this, and then they would change that maybe, so there's always a constant chat really about things. So I try to be in as much involved as possible, really, I would say. And yes, it's absolutely, I think it's very beneficial to both of us, to them and to me, equally. I think it's very beneficial.
Yeah, I remember him telling me that like I said, he does post work, and he said to some DPs, he's had some DPs actually sit next to him while he's editing, and these other DPs where it's like, well, my job's done, I'm going on to something else. And
yeah, sometimes it's hard. I try and go and see I speak to the editors, for example. I think editors are super important, and so I normally would meet the editor before I even start a job, just to have a chat. I would invite them down to set a couple of times if they have time to come down, and I would always make sure I would call them. I would speak to them, call them, see how it's going, how's it cutting together, does that work? Obviously, they start sending you assemblies after the first few weeks, so you can then have something to watch that you can talk about. Every time I would, because I operate a lot, so if I see something on my camera that I thought was a really good moment, I would straight away email the editor and say, look, make sure you check out that little look there that happened there, or this moment.
Yeah, you also shot Overlord, and the first action set piece with the paratroopers jumping out of the burning plane. Again, like you said, you have a lot of experience working with visual effects, and I guess how much of that was practical with them jumping out of the burning plane and the POV shot of him falling down through the sky down to the ground?
We built an airplane which was on a gimbal, so we were about 30 feet up in the air in the plane. It had to be so high because it was a long plane, and because we had to try and get it to a 45-degree angle. So when we did that actual sequence, when they're waiting to jump and the plane explodes, the plane was on a sort of 45-degree angle. The nose was almost touching the floor, and we had taken the nose off because I had big, I think, quarter Wendy's there to do the lighting effect, but I also had big flame bars and flamethrowers. Like I said, I like to try and do as much, like put in some real effects as possible too. So there was real fire there. And then obviously lighting on cues to do that. So it was a mixture, it was a mixture of real and obviously lighting effects. Uh, and then we did for him actually falling out. He was on a different gimbal, and it was all on green screen. But again, I had flame bars around him, and then various lights triggered at certain moments to, you know, there's a plane exploding up there, or there's this happening there. So it was just to give it some life, really.
Okay. So with the, I believe it's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember, was there a POV shot of him falling down as if like he's looking down where as he's falling in that scene?
Yeah, but it wasn't a pure. It was kind of a shot where we sort of jump out and the camera twists and turns and then
That's
finds
right.
him, and we actually find that he's actually attached. The camera's actually attached to him. So
Yeah, it was a great scene. I mean, you start off a movie like that and you know what you're in for. I mean, it's just great.
yeah, it was good fun. It was good fun shooting it.
You know, our time is almost up. It's been great talking to you. I just had two more questions. You know, is there any upcoming films or shows that you're working on that you can talk about a little bit with us?
I can't, unfortunately. I was prepping for a show just before this whole COVID thing started, but obviously we all got shut down or postponed. I've just found out. Well, I haven't really found out, but nothing's happened yet. We don't know when we're starting up again, but I've heard that it won't be for a little while. So, yeah, I've had a few scripts come through actually over the last couple of days. So I'm gonna just take a bit more time. You know, I've really enjoyed this time to spend with my family, with my baby, with my wife. You
How
know,
old's your
it's been
baby?
great.
How old's your
She
baby?
just turned a year.
A year. Wow.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
so thank you. Yeah, so it's nice, you know, and we're having a great time together, and so I don't know, I want to look for the right project. I want to do something that's really fun. You know, it's something, you know, we're so lucky to be doing this job that we're doing. You know, and I really know how lucky I am. I feel very lucky to be doing this. You know, it's not a job for me. It's something I enjoy doing, and so I think I've come to the point now where I've done a lot of crap and I've done a lot of tough, shitty jobs, and I want to do something that I really enjoy. You know, life's short.
With all the CG and Game of Thrones type movies, TV shows you've worked on, you want to do a romantic comedy in the UK, so you don't have to be too far away from your family.
Maybe not romantic comedy. I don't think that's my style. But you never know. You never know. I don't know. I don't know. You know, I enjoy. I don't really care. I don't really mind I don't have a plan as such. I'm not like, oh, I want to shoot this. I want to shoot that.
Yeah.
You know, as long as it's something that's interesting, and you know, I think for me that's the main thing. And I want to have a good time on set. You know, I love working with people, and so
Yeah, definitely.
we'll see what happens. But yeah, there's nothing right now.
I know that, I don't know about over there, but in the States, you know, a lot of states, they've actually announced that Hollywood can start production on TV shows and films in next Wednesday, I believe they announced.
Oh, is
And
that what it is? Next Wednesday? Okay, good.
yeah, so what's it like in the UK with are things starting to reopen or?
Well, there's nothing here so far. I've spoken to friends in Germany who've been shooting already. I've spoken to friends in America who've been shooting. A couple of people have been shooting commercials. I've just actually been offered a commercial today in a couple of weeks' time. So that would be my first job. Would be that in a couple of weeks. But I haven't heard of anything else yet. I'm sure there's other stuff brewing, and people I'm sure are waiting to get back to it.
Yeah, hopefully it gets back soon and everyone stays healthy and safe while during it too.
Absolutely, that's the main thing.
Yeah. One more question I had is, you know, if a film student or someone who wanted to get into filmmaking came up to you and you had one piece of advice to give to them, maybe something that you were told or you learned in your experiences, what would you tell them? Your advice.
I mean, look, there's no right or wrong. There's no this is the way to do it. Unfortunately, there's no magic answer to this. What I can say from what I've learned from my last 20 years or even more now, unfortunately, you know, it you have to be persistent. You have to really, it's a tough job. It's a tough industry. You have to really work hard and put all of yourself into it. I mean, it can be really, really grueling, and it can be really hard. But when you're there on set and when you're making something yourself, there's no better feeling in the whole world, and it's worth everything that you've done and all the hard work you've put into it. And I guess the advice would be just don't give up, because you never know what's around the corner. You know, and it's something that we all go through, and it's something that we all have to get used to. But you're never ever always going to get the jobs that you want. You know, you're always going to get knocked back or knocked down, and someone else is going to get that job that you wanted to do. But you never know, something's going to be around the corner that you don't expect. And I've had that many times in my career. You know, I've had many moments where I did an interview and I thought that I would get that job, and I didn't get it, and I felt really down. And then suddenly the next day I had a phone call for something that suddenly came my way, and in the end it was the right thing. And so you just never know, you know. And I think to do that, you just have to try and be honest to yourself, and you have to be yourself to everybody else. Don't be a dickhead. Be a nice person. You know, it's a tough industry with a lot of competition, but I think in the end, being a nice person and being yourself pays off.
You don't hear about these egotistic, you know, jerks. You hear more about the nice guys, is what I'm trying to say. You hear more about people talk about, hey, you know, this guy is super nice. He's super cool. I want him to be on my set. I want him I want to work with him.
I think that's what it is. You know, I think a lot of the time, a lot of the reasons of why I've been getting jobs a lot of the time was because people were saying, oh, you know, he's a nice guy. Him or her, you know, they're doing a really good job. They're nice. They're like, you know, that's what it is. You know, and I think it becomes a thing more and more now, I think.
I don't know if Simon told you this or not, but you said that you were born in 78, and we were too. We were born in March 14th,
yes,
78.
I was on April 25th.
That's pretty cool.
78 so we're not far off.
Yeah, 78 was a good year. Great year.
It was a good year.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, you know, thanks so much for taking the time for us. And, you know, hopefully
it's a pleasure.
Yeah, hopefully we can do this again soon, when, you know, later on in the future with more projects that you have coming up. And it was great talking to you.
Great.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll let you go and say hi to your wife and family for us. And yeah.
Sound all good?
Yeah, he has a really bad back where he has he has fibromyalgia. I don't know if you know what that is. Very simply, it's where he gets pain almost all over his body sometimes. And so, yeah, right now he's actually in another room laying down. He had to take some pain medication to help him. Yeah, so I just...
Okay, well, say hello and all the best.
Yeah, I will. He really enjoyed talking to you. And it's a shame that the audio cut out, but, you know, technical things happen. But
it happens.
Yeah.
All good.
All right. Well, I'll let you go. And yeah.
You guys take care.
You too. Bye.